Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back. Always love talking with him and the people he brings with us because we get insight on what it's like to write a book. And many of us have had that thought. A lot of times we take it, we put it in an A box for a quieter time, thinking that, man, I'll get to that. I'm not ready for that. I don't know how to do that. Too busy for that. If you're thinking about it, there's a reason you are. You have a message, you have creativity you want to push out there. Pretty easy to get that done when somebody walks a journey with you. And I've got him right here, Mark Pogodzinski. He's got a great company called NFB Publishing out of Buffalo, New York. He's back with us. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Really well. Who is joining us today?
So today we have Sharice Fortunato, who is a local author who wrote a memoir, a very powerful memoir about loss and trauma. And it's a really heartfelt, really a strong book. And I think it's a very important, worthwhile read. And she's our guest today.
Cool. Sharice, welcome. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Really well. Is this your first book?
Yes.
Wow. That intrigues me because out of the gate, it's very personal. This is a memoir. It's essentially a family story, right?
Yes.
Let's dive in. What prompted you to write this?
Well, I was kind of like you were describing. It was put away in a box for a while. I had thoughts of starting to write a book and off and on for about a year. And then finally, my husband just kind of gave me a push and was like, just start writing this down. These things that you're saying, just start writing it down. And so I did.
This book is essentially about the loss of a loved one, right?
Yes, the loss of my brother. I lost him to suicide.
Wow. You could have written a book about maybe your brother as honoring him, but it goes a little bit deeper than that in terms of the family dynamics, right?
Yeah. So when I lost my brother, so what happened, the timeline of things is I lost my brother, and then a few months later, I got married. And then a few months after that, I had my first daughter, Ellie. And between those major transitions of losing someone and gaining a child, I kind of learned some important lessons that I wanted to instill in my children as I raised them.
Wow. It's the ending and the beginning when you talk about your marriage and then welcoming a baby. Where did you want to go in terms of the perspective of the memoir? I call them camera angles. Are we looking at it from here, looking at it from over there? Like, what did you want people to take from it?
So I guess two things. My biggest mission before I started writing was to get rid of the stigma attached to suicide and to depression. Because before I truly experienced it, I didn't know a lot about it. And there's a lot of misinformation in regards to it. People say, so and so committed suicide, which I don't agree with. If someone died by cancer, you wouldn't say they committed cancer. It's a mental disease, just like cancer affects the body, depression affects the mind. And so that was my first reason for doing it, is just talking about it more, because I think if we talk about it more, it gets rid of the stigma and it allows people to feel more comfortable if they're struggling, that it's okay to talk about, because you get rid of the shame attached to it. So that was the first part. And the second part was, as I was raising my girls, and I was thinking about these simple lessons that I'm teaching them that everybody knows and everybody can do. I thought it was important to write it down, because even though they're simple, it's not something we always remember, and it's not something that we put into our daily routine. So it's just a nice way to remind people, a nice reminder of how we can go about our daily lives.
I applaud you for writing this book because finally, in the last couple of years, maybe since COVID, more and more of us are comfortable talking about these two words, mental
Yeah.
health. And
Yep.
if you went back 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, saying those words, even if you said, I'm taking care of my mental health, people would be like, that person, all right? Like, what's going on with them? You know, they might judge you in a certain way. Now to say, yeah, I'll catch up with you later. I'm going to talk to my therapist. It's people applaud it. It's fantastic. Um, Finally, we're cool with it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, the book looks at that angle that we need to talk about these things.
Right. Yeah. It's important.
It really, really is. Mark, when you heard about this project that Charisse was working on, what was your first thought?
Um, Again, with the mental health angle, it's an interest of mine. And I reading into it, like it's the next evolution of the process. And it started with when Kennedy JFK signed a mental health bill right before he was assassinated, and possibly because of his sister and her mental difficulties and the institutionalization of all these different things. So when she approached me with the book and I saw there's pictures of it of her brother, um, a healthy, seemingly robust young man, and that this would happen. I thought it's an not interesting, but like almost an imperative book for that demographic. We see these guys, and again, if you saw the picture, healthy, smiling, seemingly the life of the party, and underneath, there's so much turmoil. So that's what really struck me. And like having gone through a trauma with the loss of my daughter, I agreed with Sharice. Like the more people know about it, the less they feel alone in their pain. So that's why it really spoke to me on those two levels.
You never know what somebody's going through. And as I pilot through life, my first thought is in my rules of life, in my journey, love everyone. Love
Mhm.
everyone. That's, paramount. What does that mean? You go to Starbucks, the barista made your coffee really good. Tell them it's okay. We're so afraid of like how to be judged. And no, you did a great job on my coffee. I don't know what you did, but it's fantastic. By the way, love your hair. Looks great. Have a good day. You may save their life. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going on behind them. And if you're thinking it, if you're feeling it, verbalize it. Even if it's just a hello to somebody. We are so afraid to do that. And we got in the mental health thing. We moved, the needle there in a positive direction. But on the flip side of that, people are afraid to engage with other people. Part of that is social media. We don't even know how to do it anymore. But at the same time, being judged like, that guy's creepy over there, like, no, just be friendly. That's all. We don't do that. And isn't it a shame?
It is because it's just those simple daily things that just, you know, I think when we look at this world today, it's just feels so divided and so much turmoil is going on. For me, it's overwhelming. It's like, how could I make a change, right? How can I fix all the ugliness that's in the world? And I scale it back and I say I can do what I can control, right? I can control holding the door open for someone,
Yes.
or I can control smiling at someone, right? And exactly what you said. It's a small thing, but it can go a long way.
Well, they say that love is the highest vibration. If you think about energy, and I've even experimented. I walk into the gym, do the same thing I do every single day. But as I'm walking in, I'm thinking, raise your vibration, positivity, raise it up, raise it up, raise it up. I walk through the door, people pass me, same people every single day. Nobody says anything. When I do that, more times than not, people say, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, how's it going?" I'm not. I didn't change my facial expression. I didn't do anything except was intentional about my mindset going into it. When you wrote the book, Charisse, or during the writing process, a lot of times when you write a book, there's self-editing. How did you know what to leave in? How did you know what to leave out?
Um, yeah, it was tough because it was a balance of how much do I want to share. Um, And it felt very safe sitting behind my computer and typing away and being so open and vulnerable. And then the moment that it went out and I hearing from family and friends that they're getting it, I was like, oh, like it was like I felt very exposed. And that was the
Mm.
whole plan. But I don't think I let myself get to that point to realize like what are the reactions going to be. So
It's probably a good thing when you think about it, because
yes,
then if you were thinking about reverse engineering it and how it's going to be perceived, then you might have just filtered things,
yes.
and it wouldn't be as good as it is with the genuineness of coming out.
Yes, there's definitely some things in there that, I felt bad about writing, but it's my truth. It's stuff with family. And so I just kind of gave myself permission to tell my story and and just know that I can control what I can control, and I hope it's well received, and just let it fly.
Were you concerned about the way maybe family might perceive, judge, interpret?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my parents I thought about a lot because I do get into very detailed account of losing my brother. And that's very hard, sitting there and reading it and having to reread it. You go through those emotions. Like I feel the tightness in my chest every time. And so I've told them, I said, maybe you don't read that part. You already know, you don't need to relive that. Um, and then, yeah, I guess a
Hmm.
little nerve-wracking about talking about growing up. But I have a great sister, and so I talk to her a lot, and she's like, it's okay, you're telling your story, and that's how you perceive things to be, and that's fair.
Have to ask this question because you just tapped into something in my mind right there. I have a sister too, twin.
Oh,
And when we talk about our childhood, she sees it differently than I see it. And I'm like,
yes,
but you were there. Like dynamics, whatever.
right.
Um, do you experience that?
Oh, yes, so much so. She's 4 years older than me, so she was aware of a lot more growing up
Okay.
than I was. I was the youngest of the three, and so I just was living my best life until one day my parents said they were getting a divorce, and I was completely shocked when my sister said, "Oh, I could see this coming." So it
Mm.
definitely two different childhoods.
Do you ever have this one where, mom treated you better than me?
Yeah, we kind of joke around who's your dad's favorite or your mom's favorite, and I
Right.
think that's with every family.
Good. I feel better now. I'm not even kidding, because we've had this discussion and I'm like, well, no, mom didn't. It was like, well, remember that time and she did this for you, and well, and then it gets like granular,
Oh,
scenarios and situations, and it's just, I don't want to say it's all in fun. There's some seriousness to it, but it's amazing in a family dynamic how you see things differently than somebody else. But then again, they say what you experience as a child, 0 to 7,
yeah,
pilots the rest of your life. It sits in your subconscious.
yeah.
And what I may experience could be radical. Our parents could say the same statement, and you
Hmm.
would interpret it a different way than I would, and maybe take it with you for the rest of your life in one way, and I might do it in another way. Every child, every individual is different.
Yeah, and thinking of it from a standpoint as a parent with my two girls, I love them both equally, right? Like as a parent, like I have.
Don't, yes, you do, but there are some days. Come on, let's be honest.
Well, yes, but like
Favorite of the
love
week.
them, love them, love them, love them.
Sure.
But in 20 years from now, who knows what they're going to say? Well, mom liked you better because she did this. So absolutely, it's all about perspective.
What do you want people to take away from reading this story?
I want I want people to be more present in their everyday and find ways that they can spread small acts of kindness because I think small acts of kindness can make a big difference. Um, and I think the way you get there is you have to first focus on yourself because you can only give so much love to outwardly as that you have for yourself, which is hard. It's hard to sometimes look at yourself in the mirror and pump yourself up, right? You look in the mirror and you're picking out all the flaws, or you have a negative narrative going in your head of everything you did wrong. Stop and think, what have I done right today? Build yourself up so you can build others up. And I feel
Mm.
like if everybody did that, we'd walk around a lot happier.
Unfortunately, yes. And unfortunately, most of us can't look at ourselves in the mirror and just say, I love you. You're
Yeah.
you're awesome. Like you're amazing. The things we tell ourselves in our mind, we would never say, ever say to somebody that we love. We just wouldn't. We wouldn't walk up to somebody we love and say, "Oh my God, look at your face. What is that? What oh, your hair looks horrible." You would never do that. Many of us can't express that to ourselves. It's a
Yeah.
shame. And thank you for the kindness reminder. This cup of coffee, I was going to buy it today. The woman in front of me bought it for me.
That's
And
awesome.
I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. And I'm going to be honest here. It didn't look like she could afford a lot. And I was just like, you don't have to do that. She goes, no, I want to have a
Mhm.
blessed day. So I'm so looking forward to paying it forward later today or when that situation presents. And I looked at her in the eye and I said, thank you. And I assure you, I will pay it forward. I will do the same kindness for somebody else. And that's the way we should roll. Mark, when you got the manuscript and you got this story, was it more of a challenge because it's a memoir, because it's more personal? When it's a fiction story, maybe factual or a combination of the two, it seems a little bit different. How do you work with a story like this, and then there comes some editing too?
This particular memoir, you want to be very careful and be very respectful of the author and the subject matter. So, for my editing, from my point of view, is minimal at best. I'm not going to edit someone's life story. That's not for me. Grammar, spelling, sure, we'll take care of that. But when you edit a novel, I mean, you can dive in and tear it apart to the point where, it becomes something new or hopefully better. With the memoir like this one, I want to make sure that, as she said, it had to be honest, and she had to go places that were uncomfortable. Um, Hopefully for Sharice, it was therapy writing it, and then for people to read it, also therapeutic. And that's the first best scenario when we're doing a memoir like that, because it's an emotional marathon, I would think, to write this.
Mhm.
I would have it'd be almost impossible for me to do this, having gone through what she went through. So again, respect, make sure that it's done correctly, and the subject matter, make sure that it comes across not tragic, although it's a trauma that's happened, but at the end of the book, something positive comes from it. And I think she did that brilliantly. At the end of the book, she talks about what happened, and then it ends with what can we take from this? What can we take from this horrible event? Move on with my children, move on with my family, and move on in the world. And I think that was, as taken as a whole, that was a very powerful part of the book.
I just have an epiphany, and I got inspiration from all of this. They say that we should journal. We should write things down, how we're feeling, do it every day or try to. And then I just had a flash of, okay. And I do that occasionally. I keep a gratitude journal and things like that. Then I had a flash. What if, just for me, and this is for anybody, to write down certain situations that are painful,
Oh, yeah.
whatever they might be. And even if you're still not feeling that pain, it could be in your subconscious. And honestly, I thought in just now, in seconds, flashing through my mind, me sitting there and writing about them, I don't think I could. And I should challenge myself and all of us to do that because I feel you may realize certain things about yourself, about how maybe you internalized that situation. Maybe things might come to light that you didn't realize. So, Teresa, I give you a lot of credit,
Mm.
a lot of credit. I just saw this in my mind, like the passing of my dad when I was 21. Didn't have a great relationship with him. There's stuff buried there. And then I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go home. I'm going to write about that. I'm like, no, I don't think I can. Wow. I give you a lot of credit in looking at it that way, um, to let this all flow out and for your healing, but the healing and benefit of others, to understand, a lot here. As you were writing, did you find like things editing or did you just let it flow?
Um, yeah, I pretty much just wrote like the first part of the book where I talk about Justin, it was just nonstop. Like I just started writing and I don't think I got up for like 3 hours. And it was just so therapeutic. You know, as hard as it was to go through each of those moments, it felt so good to write it down. Um, and then no, I think it was more of I wrote a general idea and I found myself having to add more in and rather than take stuff out. Like I felt like I needed more stories about Justin. And then I was like, I realized I need to go back and look at my childhood and how did I get here from there. So it was more adding in. There's nothing really that I took out. I adjusted,
Yeah.
changed the way I wrote a few things, but it was more about adding in to make it create a better picture. People help understand who Justin was, what our life was growing up, stuff like that.
Hmm. The title, All In.
Mhm.
What's that mean?
So my brother was very into poker, and he was an excellent Texas Hold'em poker player. And he won his way into the Las Vegas World Championship, whatever it was. And it was early on in the tournament, day one, and I was there to watch him.
Wow.
And yeah, it was so fun. It was awesome. And it was the middle of the day, and he gets a hand and he puts all his chips in. And I'm looking at him going, what are you doing? Like, this is it. If you lose, you're out. And we're
I
here
have
for
anxiety hearing
I
this.
know. I know. I'm like, you have 2 more days to get through. And a couple of people folded and a couple of people matched him. And then there was some commotion and the cameras came over because they realized that this is a big hand. And they flipped the cards and he won. And
Wow.
he won a giant pot and he just looked up at me and gave me a grin like, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. And I just love that he took that risk and went all in. And I love that we can use that term not only for poker, but how we can live every day.
Hmm. Would you say a lot of things in his life he was kind of all in?
Yes, yes. He
Hmm.
he was yes, but not all in on himself, unfortunately. He was all
Understood.
in on others,
Right.
um, but he could never bring that back to him.
And there's the message in the book. Wow. Thank you both for today, man. I got to tell you, this has just been an eye opener. And we've, Mark and I have done these, along the way, and they've all been fantastic. But there's something very different about this type of book. It makes you think. It makes you think about life. It puts a lot of things into perspective. Last question, Therese. After you wrote the book, did you have a different perspective on life?
Um, it's nice because it's a daily reminder, right? I mean, I mentioned in the book too, is like I don't want to be labeled as, oh, I'm going to be kind all the time because I'm also human and I wake up and I'm in a bad mood, right? Or I've had a bad day. Um, so it is nice for me to think back and be like, remember, you wrote about this.
Hmm.
Just do what you said. Just follow the
Right.
advice that you're trying to give other people. So that's helpful.
Love it. NFBpublishing.com is the website to find out more about the book. The links are there to Amazon as well. And if you're looking to share your story, whatever that story is, Mark, just reach out to you. Simple as that.
Yep. Just go to the website. There's a small form to fill out, and that'll start the process.
Fantastic. Both of you, thank you so much for today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Thank
you. We'll
you.
be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.